Hey everyone, this is smpratte, and it's time again for the best time of the month, the March 2023 Patreon exclusive monthly market recap video. As usual, we have a lot to talk about. I'm actually recording this on Pokemon Day, February 27th, for the 27th anniversary of Pokemon. I cannot believe it's been 27 years. Time just flies now for me. I'm like living dog years. Like every year's like 7 years in one. This is the 27th lap for Pokemon. It's been a wild ride, and we will talk about the recent announcements about the new set. Before we do that, perhaps actually a bigger announcement. Anybody who wanted to consign with me, I actually have a special promotion thing happening with eBay for the next couple months where they're going to share some of my listings on their social media outlets. I was also told that some of my auctions might even be featured on the front page, like ebay.com. So you might see like an smpratte auction cycling on the front page, which would be massive. So these auction blocks are probably going to overlap. I think the one that was confirmed in email was the April. It ends on April 2nd, I believe. So I'll start like 10 days before that, like March 23rd or something. And it'll wrap over and on April 2nd. The May one still isn't determined. I'm not sure which one of these is going to get the front page treatment. Either way, both of them will have added advertisement. They'll at least be shown throughout their social media outlets. The stuff's going to be shared. Now, how this happened is I got an email from a guy who was just like, hey, like, we notice you, we see you. At first it was like a little bit corporate speak. It was like, we see you, we hear you, we notice you. You haven't gone unnoticed. But it was very complimentary, and I'm like, okay, I'll see where this goes. And they're like, yeah, would you want us to feature your stuff? Because it's like a win-win, I guess. They get to showcase, some of these unique cards that come through consignments. And, I also get more eyes on it. So there you go. That's what's happening. And if you're on the fence about sending anything on consignment, maybe that will be motivation to push you over. But of course, do whatever is best for you. And I'll probably be a little bit more choosy, on more of the higher end items, just to try to keep these blocks not like getting PWCC level where it's like 10,000 a month. So with that said, of course, always just message me with whatever you want to consign. And also, ask your questions below and we will respond to them in the Q&A. So getting back to the Pokemon Day, the big announcement that we probably all want to talk about, the only one we probably want to talk about, not the Snorlax sleeping in Pokemon Go. Base Set 27 is here. We have Base Set First Edition, Shadowless, Unlimited, 2, Base 2. We have Legendary Collection, Evolutions. Even, we'll throw Stormfront in there. We even got the little throwback, the different takedown Charizard. Evolutions, Celebrations. Now we have Base Set 27. I cannot get enough of the original generation. I'm maximum nostalgia for that time, but I think we might be full on base set. I think Pokemon is really trying to put a base set Charizard art in the hands of every single human on the planet. So here's another iteration of base set Charizard. What we have so far, this just went like an hour ago. I saw the post on E4. The Japanese one that has like the gold border looks really clean. There's a Charizard, Blastoise. I think all the big ones, Mewtwo, Chansey, of course, already responded. I do think there's a couple new cards in there, if I'm not mistaken, like a Lugia, Ho-Oh. But again, this is very early days. So far, from what I've seen, Japanese looks better. Don't want to beat that horse too hard into the ground. That's usually how it is. But again, it's still a little bit of wait and see. I saw that this is most likely going to be like a higher retail price. I think it was 35,000 yen. So it kind of feels like a Master Battle collection type deal, one of these releases where it has a higher retail price right out of the gate. Only thing with that is I hope there's just enough of it. Like, just print this into the ground. Like, achieve the goal you want to achieve, Pokemon, to give everyone the world a base set Charizard and just print a lot of this. It would be disappointing if it ends up being like a heavy scalped item, But ultimately what I'm going to do, buy some of this, throw it away for 5 to 10 years. Hopefully I find it again. That's really it. That's what I'm going to do with it. So, yeah, it is exciting, but I do wish they would just do a little bit more. I know the 151 chase is a big, big chase. All of us did it. All of us at some point probably enjoyed it or went that route. But I think we could do something, at least like a different art. Maybe that's what the 151 is going to do. It'll take some of the originals and like do a different interpretation, which perfect segue. We're going to talk about the 151 set. The one thing I wanted to share for all the detail-oriented viewers, like myself in this case, is that these boxes, or the cases, are going to have 12 boxes in them. So what that typically means for Japanese stuff is the high-class sets usually have 20. So like V-Star, for example, the rectangular boxes, 20 boxes in a case. Where this, at least what I was told when I did my pre-order, was 12 boxes per case. So that means more like the standard square 30-pack, like Eevee Heroes, the new Scarlet Violet set, all of those standard sets. So with that said, again, just my opinion, I'm not really deterred because I think you would truly have to fumble hard to miss on delivering 150, the first set with all 151 Pokemon. Like, all of us original Boomer collectors started with Base Jungle Fossil. Like, when I got back into this, one of the main goals was doing Base Jungle Fossil. So many people try to do that. So, yeah, I'm betting that this one's probably going to be a little bit better than the average set. Why I'm saying that is because I did do my same order of 50 cases for this, just like I did with V-Star. Normally, I don't do that for a standard set. Standard set, I'm somewhere between 5 to 10. Again, because I can't sell a lot of this stuff normally. Maybe if I expand the smpratte Enterprises one day and actually hire somebody, I will try to order more. Maybe even do the Patreon thing that Rudy does. Make that dream a reality. But until then, I usually do 5 to 10 cases. So this one, I'm treating it as if it is a high-class set. And just trying to get all out there where I'm coming from, the separation there between, 20 boxes versus 12 in a case. To me, I don't really mind. I see this more of an EV Heroes than I do like a Crimson Invasion. But as always, it's just what I'm doing. It's just my opinion, my strategy. If you are still pumping the brakes, you're like, well, this isn't high class, then, do whatever you're comfortable doing. But even with that said, EV Heroes is outpacing some of those other high class releases. So there you go. Now, speaking of the 50 case order, another mention I wanted to throw in here is that there's apparently going to be another V-Star wave. Why I'm saying it that way is because I received my second, third wave. I can't even keep track at this point. Put in my 50 case order, got like 2 to 3 cases. So I struggle to call that a wave. That's more like a splash. Like, that's nothing. That's not even a tenth of what I ordered. So yeah, we still haven't gotten the full, at least for me, I haven't got my full order, and this feels very 2020 all over again. I'm sure it's because the set's so popular, there's probably bottlenecks, so many people want it. They normally don't do this many waves, actually. They don't usually do like 2 waves and then another one after this. So apparently we're getting another one. I put the same 50 case order in again. The distributor texted me, was like, you want to do 50 again? I'm like, yeah, like that's fine. If you can actually get it, or whatever you get, just whatever it is, just let me know. So just wanted to let you guys know that my last wave, sprinkle, splash, whatever you want to call it, was 2 to 3 cases and not 50. So still on the road to maybe getting 50 actual cases of that set. All right, next thing, getting into a couple of Patreon exclusives here. First one is going to be Ludkins UK. I'm sure some of you saw on E4 the screenshot shared of the 1.177 million debt or something like that, like Master Chief's number. it was over $1 million or £1 million in debt. First thing, the exclusive thing, which should be announced, at least I was told should be announced in a couple weeks. All Ludkins UK orders are going to be taken over by another middleman, one that did not fail. And that's something I actually wanted to talk about here, because I think with what Ludkins did successfully, in a way, like, hear me out, is that they painted the picture for a very long time that it was like all the other companies' fault, right? Like PSA or whoever it was. And then when you put 2 and 2 together and you saw the same issues happening with all these other grading companies that were tied to Ludkins, but not those companies on their own, you're like, maybe it's the common variable here. Maybe it's the common denominator that's the issue. And more to that point is that they're really the only middleman I've heard of that failed. I didn't know of another one. I know the whole, like, I don't know how much I could share on camera. I know there were a couple other companies or people that were cut because of they were working with a competitor, but that's a different ballgame. It's not really a failure. That's more of a conflict of interest. But yeah, they're the only ones I know who truly failed, because I know plenty of other middlemen who still exist. Like even the PWCC thing, like PWCC's getting some free advertisement here. I sent in some of these through that thing they do where you send it in, they grade it with Becca, and then they put up an auction. I was like, okay, let me test this out and see how it is to make money without having to do all the work. So that is an example of a successful middleman path. Maybe one day if they have PSA, then that'll also be, that'd be bonkers if they made that happen. But the point is there's other middlemen out there. In fact, majority of them who didn't have a conflict of interest and or were Ludkins are still there. So one of those is going to take the baton, not the debt, and I think just finish out these orders to try to help PSA process these orders. So yeah, that was just something that came to mind. Seems obvious, But when I think about the whole process that we all went through for the past couple of years, you heard every step of the way how PSA and all them were being blamed. And it's like, well, all these other middlemen were doing it fine. They didn't have $1 million in debt. I just don't understand how that happened. I would always charge people up front if I did this. I don't understand what that business model was, or at least keeping an escrow. I don't know. I'm not going to guess because obviously they messed up bad. Like you can see the number. That's a lot of money. For Pokemon especially, that's a lot to fumble. So anyway, that's the rundown on it. It will be handed over. And yeah, just had that idea. I know we talked about this to death probably. We're tired of hearing of it. But yeah, it was definitely a Ludkins thing. And they really controlled the narrative to a point that was unrealistic, because all these other companies were fine. It was just them. So yeah, there we go. Hopefully that's the final time we talk about that whole crazy thing. Now, next up, another minor Patreon exclusive, I guess, is PWCC, speaking of, is adding a wish list. So it's like those ones you have on Trolled Toad, or at least I've had for like 10 plus years. I'm like, yeah, I really hope this one super rare card appears at the price you had it at, because I would snap buy it. But I've yet to get one of those notifications. I remember I used to get those back in the day, like for 9 tails, no damage or something, like some really obscure air card. And now it's like they never happen, or the person gets in, it's gone like that. So anyway, PWC is going to add that. That's a nice perk to see. It makes it easier. And there will be potentially a couple other Patreon exclusive you'll get over the next couple months. So I'll keep you posted. There's a couple I can't say yet until everything's finalized, but yeah, maybe by next month I can reveal them. Now, speaking of PWC, we have another segue into the Black Label Umbreon. Lot to talk about this. This might be a part 1 of 2 if you catch my drift. So this card sold for like $11,000 and actually started a really good thread, which we're going to talk about that mostly here in part 1. About Ultra Rare Mint or Better. Is Ultra Rare Mint or Better? Is it still true? Does it still exist? Does it still make sense? It's too boomer now. Obviously, the Umbreon is a very speculative purchase, but the distinction here is if you're the person who grades the card and gets a Black Label, that's the person you want to be. If you're the person who buys the Black Label, that's not as much the person you want to be. So that is the thing I think that a lot of people realize with this sale. Of course, it's a real sale. I'm not trying to, also while I'm saying that, I'm not trying to downplay. If you're someone who just wants the best of the best and you don't give a F what anybody else thinks, more power to you. Like, do your thing. Like, do whatever it is you want to do. However, with that said, there's a very heavy culture of like flex culture, whatever, with Black Labels. I know multiple guys who go hard after Black Labels, and I'm probably preaching to the choir here, what I'm about to say, who also simultaneously flex their watches and their spinning rims and like their supercar, and they have a lot of money thrown around or whatever, and very loud in your face. And the Black Label, I think, caters to that like culture because it's very flexy, it's like this is the best. So that's why I'm pretty outspoken about it, just because I'm trying to like categorize the type, or I guess the person who's really going after that. Because at the end of the day, if you just are, I had this like thing going into Pokemon a long time ago. I'm like, oh, nerds are just so pure. Like they just really love what they do. They just love video games. They're very harmless. They're very innocent. They just love their hobby, right? Absolutely not in 2023. Everybody's here in 2023. We got the flexers, we got those people, we got the really nice, kind people like who are here. Like someone who's messaged the other day, we'll give him a shout out. Pack Fresh Charizard made my day. Reading those nice messages that you get every once in a while. You have those people. However, these type of people are also in the hobby. And I feel like that's what Black Labels really cater towards. I feel like that's a significant portion of the Black Label, whatever you want to say, market. Because if you want the art, if you are on that side of like the person who does just love the art, the hobby, they really just enjoy Pokemon, you can get the same card in a lower grade. It's a lot less expensive. You can get in a PSA 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, even in a binder. And it's not going to be like half the price of a, an economic car or something. So that's a very lofty price. And that discussion, segueing is into the Ultra Rare Mint or Better. There was a really good discussion that came from that. And I wanted to talk about that and dig deeper since I was the creator of that term. First off, and I should probably make this in a public video, but first off, Ultra Rare Mint or Better is meant to just be a decrease of risk. It's not to say what will make you the most money. Because obviously, if you graded that Black Label Umbreon, you just made $11K. And that's like one of the best moves you can make in Modern. Probably the best. Like, I don't know what else you could do outside of getting into like World's trophies or something. So Ultra Rare Mint to Better is just to say this is the way to decrease your risk, to buy something that potentially has better value than an energy card, than, you know, something that doesn't fit the bill as much. And when you look at the most valuable items, they're all like 72 bold italicized font of Ultra Rare Mint to Better, Pikachu Illustrator, all of those capitalized to the max. Trophy Kangaskhan, all of those capitalized to the max. Now, it doesn't need to be just those cards, but you get the point that the biggest items, most valuable items, fit that mold the most, but the largest. So Black Label is minter, but the card is truly not that rare. I think when I read that thread, I think there was already like 50 other Black Labels. Maybe there's more now. You know, that was a few days ago now when I read that thread. But the bottom line is that that's all about reducing risk. And we know the fundamentals long term. And that's something I want to touch on here, is that some of this stuff can have like an ebb and flow. For example, right now, I think if we really want to get deep into it, get really into the Patreon value, I think right now rarity is probably in the spotlight, where I wouldn't say that in 2020. I wouldn't say that in 2016. I think in those exposure years, older was probably more in the spotlight, you know, from Ultra Rare Mint to Better. I think older was capitalized more in 2016 and 20, kind of going back to the 151 thing. A lot of people who getting back into Pokemon for the first time again, they are trying to do base Jungle Fossil. What happened back in 2016? WotC, first edition chase cards. What happened in 2020? Same deal, first edition base, Lugia, you know, these WotC stuff we grew up with. What all those streamers do? What did Penguin, right? Ludwig, isn't that it? Those are the guys. They bought all these boxes. What were they buying and opening? WotC product. So during those exposure years, I think older is the one from that is like the most vivid. Well, right now, I think it's rarity. I think because we've gone through the waves of like, okay, well, now all this WotC stuff's out here. Going back to the thing about how the market's diverse, it's not just innocent, you know, basement dwellers anymore. You have people who are buying cards and trying to sell and go through hundreds of thousands of cards in a year. Like multiple people and businesses doing that now. So what do you think naturally those type of cards are going to do? What cards are they going to process that fast? Trophy Kangaskhan's, some of the ones we mentioned earlier? No, they're going to process a lot of those WotC cards that were like prime time, you know, in 2020, 2016. But my point is that Ultra Rare Mint to Better, again, is just about reducing risk. And even in different eras or different times in the market, one of those can be a little bit more prominent than the other. And why I think rarity is more prominent today, especially, you know, from my like firsthand experience, which we'll talk about in sales as well, is because the cards that really stand out to me now, not only as a seller, but as a buyer and a viewer, are the rare ones. Perfect example, I had a PokéDude PSA 7 that came through on consignment. Not even an 8, 9, 10 Black Label, just a PSA 7. And right when it ended, I had multiple people who messaged me and were like, God, I missed this. One guy was like, I'm gutted I missed this. I've been looking for this card. You know, let me know if they don't pay. And of course, they paid right away. But that's more of the point. Not a huge card, not a Trophy Kangaskhan, not something crazy like that. It is pretty rare, but it's very obscure. Doesn't even have a Pokemon in it, but it's more to that point. It's a rare card that these places that are doing hundreds of thousands of WotC Black Star promos and Pick Your Poison modern chase card firing through that every freaking month. It's hard to do that with a Pokédude that only has like 200-ish copies. It's hard to do that with the Pika Ring or even the standard Victory Ring or a lot of those cards, you know, because that is why, in my opinion, again, why rarity is so prominent right now is because you do have all these people processing in a way that you didn't before. So they process through all the old stuff, the stuff that's available, and they still are. Like every auction block, keep it real. Are we tuning in for were you tuned into my auctions for the PSA 9 Abra, even though it has beautiful art? No. You were probably looking at the Pokédude, the Champion Stamp card, the PCL maybe, you know, maybe even some of the chase cards like the Charizard Gold Star, which again, difficulty there. There's some type of rarity. So anyway, that's my breakdown / rant. Hopefully that was coherent enough. And one other thing I wanted to say here, which we'll talk about again in part 2 when we get to Black Labels again, is that minter is happening because it's easier than chasing a rare card. It's much easier to go get the super ultra mega mint version of the card that's like 10,000 copies, right? Where it is harder to go get the Pokédude. You know, Pokédude's really getting some love right now. He's a good example because it's some obscure card. Pokédude is not a card you find out in week 1, maybe even in year 1 for a lot of people in the hobby. That's a card that even some people who have been around for years might not even know about. So it's a great example because it's mega obscure, but because it's so rare, you don't need the Penguin, like Ludwig, I don't know how to pronounce their name right. Penguin or Ludwig streamers. You don't need them to talk about it. You don't need them to be interested in it. So anyway, really just trying to capture the older rare mint to better purpose, because we can go on and on about it forever, because it does change. Markets, the movement in markets will fluctuate the value of some of those fundamentals. But ultimately, you know, the big ones that fit the bill the most, it's just, you can't optimize them. You know, these guys who have endless money, endless resources to go through these hundreds of thousands of cards a year, they can't optimize that stuff, you know? So there you go. Now, moving into a couple other things here for purchase sales. Himeno signing. Actually, Worlds, we'll do Worlds after this too. Himeno signing that's happening in Charlotte is very exciting, but I'm also nervous. I am trying to do what I can to go to it, and I'll probably share that here with you guys if I do. But one thing here, or a couple things. First, this is her first signing in almost 20 years. She hasn't done a signing in the US since like 2004. And she doesn't do many signings. So I would not be surprised if she doesn't do many more. She's not like Arita. Most of these artists, in fact, are not like Arita. Arita is like a very risky statement here, like Americanized, more like entrepreneurial. That's a better way to say it than getting into like nationality. He's very entrepreneurial, where a lot of these other artists, they're not like that. And some of them are very stereotypical artists where they're reclusive, just like very smpratte-ish. Like they just don't really want to do a lot of this stuff. I feel like Himeno's a very safe bet as one of those people. She's definitely not someone who's like Arita. But with that said, one thing I want to mention here is the madness of that Arita signing. You remember that one where I did the public video and everything? There were 2 other events happening that weekend during his event. So there's nothing happening during, at least so far, during this event. So I'm worried it's going to be very similar to that. I don't want it to be. But, you know, even some of my cards, I had a Not Awake Pikachu PSA 8 go, and the guy said, hey, I'm really excited to get this in person. I'm taking it to Himeno. And there's just a lot of people going to this. There's a lot of people interested, at least. So anyway, I'm like cautiously optimistic. I'm excited for it because Himeno is a big deal, but I'm worried it's going to be like the Arita one where it was just madness. And I think there's a better structure now, but it's really tough because like when the whatnotters show up and all that, I know they've made some clause where it's like, oh, you have to in good faith not sell these, but you know, a lot of these people are going to try to sell them, and it's like whack-a-mole. There's just too many of them to there's always new one popping up. So yeah, there we go. Himeno signing is very exciting. If I do go, I'll let you guys know. And then also Worlds was just announced as well today. So that will be August 11th to 13th, I would believe. I need to I'm going to try to book a hotel for it. Even if I don't go, you know, I can cancel it last minute, but yeah, 11th to 13th. Really straightforward. 11th to 13th. If you haven't gone before, Worlds is a very, very special, probably safely the most magical experience you can have in this side of Pokemon, the trading cards and all that. So you should do it at least once. I do hope they bring it back to the US next year. I'm glad they did a couple international ones, but I feel like the US is just easier for people to get to. Japan is tough. Is there anybody that's easy to get to Japan? Like, Japan is brutal. Like, everything's like 14, 16, 18-hour flights. So, anyway, 11th to 13th of August, that's when Worlds was just now. A little earlier, actually, than it usually is. All right, purchases and sales. Purchases this month, nothing too crazy. I did buy some of those full arts of the new Scarlet Violet starters. Just, again, buy them. I need to grade them and hold them. That's my plan. So I bought a decent amount of those, maybe like 10 to 20 of them. I saw some listings where they had them in bulk, but their prices were actually like 2 or 3 times as high than just buying a couple of them. So I bought multiple listings of them instead. Normally I like to just go and grab that one big listing. Even if it was a little bit higher, I'd do it, but those were a little, I'm like, this is like twice as much, or 2.5 as much per card. So anyway, bought some of those, a very non-sexy purchase. Also bought more boxes, the V-Star ones I mentioned. Did order the next Scarlet Violet set. Nothing really exciting besides that. Nothing I can think of. I'll probably remember after I stop recording the video of some big purchase I made. All right, sales this month. Now, if we do the overlap thing for next month, I might not have sales ready because it might overlap in April. So we might have a very, very brief sales for next month. But here we go. Sales for this month, starting with our PS9 first edition base. We have Rattata, Porygon, Potion, Full Heal, Magnemite, Onix, Kabuto, Voltorb, Metapod, Doduo, Coughing, Raticate, Pokemon Center, Maintenance, Pokeflute, Energy Retrieval, Staryu, Energy Removal, Defender, Poliwag, Nidorino, Plus Power, Sandshrew, Caterpie, Ghastly, Machop, Abra, Farfetch, Professor Oak, Magmar, Starmie, Jinx, Poliwhirl, Revive, Pokédex, Dugong, Crowley, Magikarp, Kadabra, all between $30 to $62. And that takes us out of the first page. So that's the fastest first page ever had. All right, moving along. We have non-first edition base cards, PSA 10, M Charizard, CP6. The 66. This one went cheap in my opinion, $66, because I think I did a Blastoise and Venusaur for a bit more. So I was surprised by that one. PSA 10, PSA 9, Master Ball 2004 Players Club 73. PSA 10 Arcanine 87, 82. That did go to the pack first Charizard. Glad I went to a good home. PSA 8 Electro Prime. This is an unlimited one, Japanese, the one for $100. PSA 9 Arcanine CD, $100. That one was crazy. Right before the 10 ended, a 9 sold for $13 more. All right, we did have some V-Star Universe boxes as well. I think that was like the last tail end of them for 102 each, about 10 of them there. Then we had the Warp Energy. We had the P and the Play, both PSA 10 going for 102.50, 107.50. PSA 9 Magnesium Typhlosion for Alligator file cards, 113. You know what is crazy about these? I was selling them individually for about that price. That is crazy how much they've come down. That's a very high printed set. Again, it's older, not rare. Doesn't qualify as rare at all. So that's a that's the classic Ken Golden, the beauty home shopping network rant that he did. All right, we have PSA 9 Gyarados Scramble going for $127.50. Japanese Fossil Pack, $132. Another one for $133. PSA 9 Blaine's Charizard Japanese, $137.50. Felt like that was a little low. That just feels like really good value. Like that's the card to pull. This feels like really good value. All right, PSA 10 Boost and Crystal Energy. We have $138, $145. PSA 9 Porygon Z. This was an interesting purchase for $150. It was a buy it now. We had PSA 10 Erica's Venusaur. Another one feels very cheap, $155. Also at a swirl. Then we had a PSA 9 Squirtle come down from 2020, $155. Then we have Jungle Japanese pack for $156. And we have PSA 9 Dark Charizard, Dark Rocket, $157. That's Japanese. PSA 5 PCL Pokemon Card Lab, $163. PSA 10 Victor Mail 2014, $182. PSA 10 Brock's Gym, that's from the deck, $204. PSA 10 Palace Belt for $218. Then another one for $229. And then we have a PSA 10 Poncho Lucario Pikachu, $265. PSA 10 Charizard, this is the Neofile 2, $265. PSA 9 Umbreon Neo Discovery, $300. Ash versus Team Rocket, this is the Pikachu Mimikyu sealed deck, $305, Japanese exclusive. Then we have Japanese base packs at $327 and $334. Then we have Dark Charmeleon PSA 10 W Stamp, $355. PSA 9 Rainbow Energy, this is the 149 PCG, $361. PSA 10 Ancient Mew, $365. PSA 9 Mystic Determination from CP6, $376. Then we have the Kanazawa Pokemon Center box for $420. Then we have the Clefairy PSA 10. This is a Dream League Japanese exclusive promo, number 381 SMP, went for $440. Dark Blastoise PSA 10, $445. PSA 10 Psyduck Pokemon Center Pokecune, $471. Also an obscure card. PSA 9 Pikachu Gold Stamp. This is 113 PCG, went for $500. PSA 10 2017 Festa, went for $510. PSA 8 Shining Magikarp, $525. PSA 9, or that was Japanese, sorry. PSA 9 Shining Magikarp First Edition English, went for $600. PSA 8 Birthday Pikachu, Not Awake, $605. Then we had the PSA 10 Psyduck Legendary, went for $770. Then the PSA 9. I think I'm actually waiting on paying for this one. Blastoise Charizard Venusaur CD promo set, went for $730. Then we had a PSA 10 Collabo, Nicole, I call it, XYP promo, Pikachu, $800. PSA 7 Pokedude, there he is, $885. Then we have our Crystal Lugia, PSA 8, went for $1,350. PSA 10 Scream Pikachu, $2,025. PSA 8 Charizard Gold Star, $2,080. PSA 10 Charizard EX, this one was unpaid one. Finally got paid this round, went for $2,900. PSA 9 Championship Festival, Champion Stamp for 5,600. PSA 10 Shining Magikarp also went unpaid, but got paid this round. Went for $7,100. And then the big one for this month, this was a very interesting sale. PSA 10 E3 Pikachu Red Cheek, $10,000 even. I woke up to that. I was like, whoa, that's a nice surprise. So, yeah, that's one I've had up for a while. Actually, one of my favorite, speaking of WotC cards, my favorite WotC cards because it is older, it is rarer, and it isn't super easy to grade. I actually have one in a binder that has an indent because it was sealed in like a plastic wrap, saran wrap, so there's a chance they can have an indent on it. Mine did. So it's very, very mint looking, but it does have that indent. So that's why it's sitting in a binder. So anyway, that was the biggest sale from eBay for the month. And overrated and underrated is going to be fun this round. So for overrated, part 2, Black Label Umbreon. There's a lot I wanted to talk about here, and I saved it for overrated because I want to talk earlier more about the Order Rare Mints of Better thing, and now we're really going to go in on this Umbreon card. So, number 1, Minter is supposed to be a challenge. You know, we're talking about fundamentals. If you have a card that is fundamentally difficult to grade, like a Chansey, right? Why? Because what makes that a fundamental problem? Because everyone played with it. Because Chansey is so freaking powerful, they had to keep it the same in evolutions when everyone else got a power creep boost. So that is why that card is inherently harder to grade than, let's say, a Poliwrath or whatever. This ain't that. This is not that type of card. This is a card that is not extraordinarily difficult to grade. This is not a card that is extraordinarily rare. In fact, apparently, according to that person who I read their post before, there's already 50 other Black Labels. And if not, there's going to be more Black Labels. The pop report for something like this only goes in one direction, and that's up. It's not going to go down. I doubt it's even going to stay the same that long. So the bottom line here is that what this type of thing does is it really like lights that chase fire for people. They're like, whoa, 11,000, I got to get that, right? I got to do that. And all the people hustling, like an smpratte via 2011, might chase that. Might be like, yeah, let me get that card. Let me try to get that 10 and flip it or whatever. There's going to be a lot of people doing that. But the thing is here is that history will repeat itself. We've already done this dance numerous times now. If you're new to it, let me tell you about the Hidden Fates Charizard. This is probably the first Black Label stonker like this. And it really carries a lot of stuff we talked about earlier with the culture and the flex culture and all that. That Black Label Charizard from Hidden Fates went for 10K. And that was especially high back then. You know, 11K today, you know, people are doing that all the time now. But back then, that was especially high. What has it done since? 10K went down to about 2-ish, somewhere in there, maybe a little lower, and now it's somewhere in the middle. It still has not recovered. And the guy who bought it was like, I'm gonna buy all these. I'm gonna buy all the Black Labels. I don't care, I'll buy another one for 10K. It's like, okay. Like, you just lost a lot of money. Like, it's a lot of money to tie into these cards, but that's it. Like, that's the audience. Because again, if you want that art, if you're about the art, if you're about the card or whatever, you don't have to have the Black Label. The Black Label is not a necessity. In fact, I think it's one of the most speculative, like, outlier things in the hobby. You know, when people use it, kind of like in that Old Remember It's Better thing, it's more of an outlier than anything else. It really doesn't indicate much outside of these are just people who are competing on this mountaintop here that really want the best of the best. It could be 2 to 5 people that are making that price happen. You know, I think someone even shared in that thread. I think it was actually Jason or someone who shared and said, you know, I was one of the bidders on the way up. And, you know, if I didn't bid, who knows where that card would have landed? Because if you take that bid away, I remember on one of the Magic cards I was bidding on, I bid it up like double or triple what it was at initially. And then I was like, you know what? I don't want to go any further on this. The other person's just going to win it. But if I didn't bid, where would it have ended? You know? So that's what this is like. That's what the situation is. I don't see a huge, deep demand pool for Black Label, any modern stock card. And more importantly, we've done this so many times. We did it with the Reshizard, the Charizard GX, the freaking Hidden Fates Charizard is the poster child for this. Because immediately, there were so many claims that have all been debunked now. One of the crazy claims is, I don't think there's going to be more than 10 of these. I don't think there's going to be more than like 20 of these or 50 of these. It's like, there's like 200 of those Charizards now, at least. I think it was 200 last time I checked years ago, so there might even be more. So my point is that this is more of a popularity chase. And the one thing I want to close with here on Overrated, which is like a topic in topic, is popularity is a trend, not a fundamental. I saw when Overrated better was being discussed, and people were like, "Oh, popularity should be in there." No, it should not, because popularity is not always the same. When you say a Charizard is the most popular card, absolutely, but you have to dissect popularity. You don't have to dissect rarity. It is in itself. You don't have to dissect older. It's in itself. Even with Minter, it is something like what I said with the Chansey earlier, or like a pre-release Fable. A lot of the colorless Pokemon apparently are coming to mind. A T17, a lot of the Neo Genesis cards. You know, cards that are just consistently difficult to grade. Plasma Storm Charizard, you know, there are cards that are very, very difficult to grade. So that is an inherent issue that you just can't change, you know, you can't negotiate with. Where with popularity, it's not all the same. The reasons for why base set Charizard is popular is because you had a generation or generations that had this very intimate experience with that card. I don't think that same thing's happening with this Umbreon. I do think there are people that are having an intimate experience with it, but I don't think it's anywhere near the same what base set Charizard is. I don't think it's anywhere near as like precious. It might be one of those things where it's like, oh, this is the card for now, but we've done this before. You know, this stuff moves so fast. Like we had Charizard GX before. And then Reshizard. I feel like Reshizard was like that. It was there and then gone. And then you go through all the next iterations of Charizards. You know, every month there's a Charizard now. So the point is that I don't think there ever will be a base set Charizard equivalent. So when you use the word popularity, it's really hard to gauge because there's a lot of reasons for why something be popular. One of the examples I gave was that Lugia, which was another really good discussion thread the other day about how somebody said, you know, Lugia went for 110 or 111,000, whatever it was, and is Japanese, you know, underrated because of that. And what's happened since with that Lugia? It's done nothing but drop because that was a very popular moment. That's a good example why popularity can really swing dramatically. You know, that went way up because those guys I mentioned earlier, I think it was one of them, Ludwig maybe was the one streaming it. That's why it had so much attention. He was streaming that thing live while it was ending. That's why it got that crazy price. So that's the thing I wanted to close with here, is that what defines popularity is more the fundamental. You know, you really need to dissect what is going on. Because if you treated Charizard's like longevity and lifetime as the same moment as the spike of Lugia, or as the same moment right now with this 11K Umbreon, you're going to be left holding the bag a lot of the time. Because popularity has a lot going on underneath it. There's a lot of reasons for why something could be happening. There's a lot of speculation involved with these chase cards. These cards lack a lot of fundamentals. I'm not saying it's all bad. It's just there is more fat on the bone. You know, there's more you have to watch out for. You have to watch out. There's a lot more increased caloric intake, you know, when you're messing with this stuff, and you just got to be conscious of that. So yeah, that's my breakdown on the Black Label Umbreon. Again, if it's your thing, more power to you. It's just a very highly speculative route to go. You were trying to ride the wave. You were chasing a chase. You were chasing the biggest, maximum, like top of the mountain chase, not because of fundamentals, because of popularity. You know, it's just such a very trend-based move. And trends are not your friend. And I know that's saying trend's your friend or whatever. It's not. In Pokemon, as we've seen, cards can go up, down, all around, but the ones that stay the course, they have strong fundamentals. You know, the popularity can change. That's the takeaway here. It can all change. I've seen so many chase cards now people don't even talk about. I remember when Shaman, everybody's talking about Shaman. I remember when it was Yan Mega. I remember when it was Magnezone. You can go down the line of every era of chase cards. And I'm not saying Umbreon's gonna have the same fate. I'm just cautioning that we've been down this road forever. 27 years now. You know, there's a lot of chase cards. Even those one, Ken Golden screaming at the top of his lungs about those file promo cards. Those QVC sales might still be the top of the market sales from 2000. You know, when he was telling you everything that was good about him, that still might be the peak of the market. Because again, that was popularity. You were buying those on the popularity. You were buying those on the advertisement, not on the fundamentals, not on the older rare minter better. So there you go. Hopefully that explains the distinction there. Kind of a part one, part two deal with the Black Label. Now, last but not least for underrated, we have Stamped Worlds promos, specifically Champion, Finalists, and Staff. I think a lot of these right now are very underrated. Maybe, conversely, this might be a 2-for-1, double overrated here. Maybe it's because the Japanese Worlds promos are just skyrocketing right now, which we're going to talk about. But I just consigned that Champion Stamped 2013 Worlds promo. And you got to keep in mind, this is the top, like the actual top of rarity for those cards. Like none of them are higher than Champion. So that's a card with what, 6 to 12 copies total? These Japanese cards, to contrast that, they are in every single competitor's bag. Like every single competitor gets those cards. So there's definitely a lot more of them out there than there are the Champion stamped Worlds promos. So when some of those Japanese cards are the same price, if not higher than the Champions ones, to me, something's not right. Maybe it's the Japanese ones are overvalued. Maybe it's a little bit of both. Maybe the finalist Champion stamps are a little undervalued. The one thing I want to say here, though, I think regardless of the uptick of Japanese Worlds cards, I think finalists and champions suffer from being too rare. You know, that classic scenario where there's not enough data on them. So you're kind of throwing a dart into you know, a black hole. You don't really know. Like, do I want to spend 10K on this? I don't know. Did somebody else do it? Yes, but was it public? No. So I don't really, you know, they don't have the comfortable price charts. Whereas something like these Japanese Worlds promos, you can go look at the price data because there are more of them. So I think you have one of those deals going on, kind of like maybe a Trophy Kangaskhan versus like a 97 Pika. You know, one of those situations. So yeah, these are top of the mountain rarity. Champion stamp and finalist stamp, I usually bundle them together because Champion wasn't born until like 2012, I believe. So before that, it was just finalist. But either way, you're talking like 6 to 12 copies. Like this is just nothing. That's nothing. So, in my opinion, I do think that they are underrated, even if Japanese World stuff is overrated right now. And to give you a little caveat there, it's definitely driven by the Chinese markets. And I think that's no surprise for anyone with the ear to the ground. A lot of these Japanese cards, perhaps even the Pokedude and some of these other ones. The PCG Rainbow Energy is a perfect example. That went to a Chinese buyer. And he even messaged me. If someone messaged, I have a PSA 10 that I could sell them. So there was a lot of very new, very quick interest in this Japanese prize select all, you know. And to me, yeah, in my opinion, paying like, what was it, 6K, 7K for like one of the, I think it was a Japanese 2016. To me, that's bonkers. Like that's right there with a finalist from the, I know some finalists that sold around that price, like maybe a little higher. I sold one for 10. But I mean, you're talking a card that was in a backpack of every single competitor versus the literal finalists of the tournament. Like, that's really far apart. Like, that's as far apart as it gets. So, yeah, in my opinion, I think they're underrated. I also threw staff in there as well. I want to mention that before we finish here, that a lot of these staff cards are in a similar game, where I think they're comparable in rarity maybe to the competitor releases. You know, they're in a similar range. We'll never know for sure, you know, how many are out there. But they're very, what I like about them is not only do you get like the world stamp, but you also get the nice staff stamp. At least for me, I think that's cool because you get like 2 stamps there. So some of these are also doing significantly less, not only than like the Japanese, but some of them are very similar. And maybe it's an availability game, like the 2016 might be more of an outlier. But I just noticed that with some of these staff cards, I'm like, I don't want to sell this. I have some, every time I go to inventory, I go through and I'm like, let me check this one. All right, maybe I'll do one of these this round. And I'm like, nah, it doesn't make any sense. You know, I can't go get that again. Where I have a better chance of getting these competitor cards than I do getting like a lot of the staff stuff, especially in a higher grade. Where the competitor stuff, I have one sitting right here. We're sitting right here. So this comes protected. Like most of there's actually a Japanese one here that will go to a Chinese buyer probably, that's probably got to be in mint condition. You know, where the staff ones are harder to grade. They're handed out raw. Like they're open to the elements, where these are all like sleeping in a nice little snug sleeping bag. So yeah, there you go. That's a breakdown I have. Again, it might be like a little double conversation there that finals champion are I think underrated on their own, and staff as well. But also Japanese Worlds cards might be inflated right now. They might be overvalued. Because I think the people selling them are selling them into new demand. So you have, like, again, that typical 2016 type deal where it's like this sharp uptick in demand for a certain card and a low supply. That's why you see the rise you do. So there it is. That's what I have, guys, for March. Hopefully that was useful. Really try to condense and get it all out there. Try to give you every thought that comes to mind. Just try to shoot into the camera. So as always, thanks a ton for the support. I can't thank you enough. Actually got probably 4 to 5 hours sleep today. Knew I was doing a Patreon video. I was like, we're up. We're good to go. So always love doing these videos. Friendly reminder, just ask your questions below and I'll be back probably about 10 days or so to do the first Q&A, and then keep asking the questions if they're not at 50 per month, and then we'll do the other Q&A. And then, of course, send those items, a list of items you want to consign anything for those eBay promoted smpratte auctions. So there it is, guys. You know deal. Let me know how I feel. It's pretty much it. Happy Pokemon Day. I'll see you guys in a couple weeks. Till next time.